little bit like the old Godfather movies, but you know, these were usually favours paid within 5 to 10 years or so, whereas when you're talking about guanxi, it could be that you incur an obligation, and it isn't you that even gets to repay the obligation, it's your child or grandchild. Why is it that Tokyo is one of the most expensive places to live in the world? Well, because, especially with relation to what people actually earn, it's because the mortgage system is such that it spans 3 generations. The grandfather buys the family house, he takes out the mortgage, yeah? And then the father's worked all his life paying off the mortgage, but he doesn't finish paying it. It devolves back onto the grandchildren's generation, and it'll be one of them that ends up paying the mortgage. So I don't know how long has anybody here got a mortgage?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you got 15 years, maybe you got, I mean, not left to pay, but maybe at the beginning when you got the mortgage, maybe you got a 15-year mortgage. That would be quite good by our standards. Maybe you got a 20-year mortgage, maybe you got a 25-year mortgage. Yeah? Those are the kind of normal, I mean, certainly in the United Kingdom, those are the normal lengths for a mortgage. Whereas, if you're talking about the Japanese, well, it can last an awful lot longer than that. So, and that's not even China. Japan in this scale is 88 to China's 118. Hong Kong has 96, and the lowest ones. Sorry, you've got a different one?
You said Japan had 86.
I said 88.
Says 80.
Does it? Okay, well you might have got a different, there might have been different research on different times. But the lowest comes out in the Anglo-US world, so we're short-termists. The Muslim world is remarkably short-termist. I mean, look at what happened in Egypt. What have we just had in Egypt? The first anniversary, wasn't it? Of the Arab Spring, effectively. And who turned up on Tahrir Square, or whatever it's called? Almost nobody. They almost didn't need to put the police out. Because it's a year on, people have in the meantime decided, okay, it's all fizzled out. We didn't get much out of it, we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got something, and we're not that bothered anymore. So, you know, very short-termist. Yeah? So, the Muslim world seems for some reason to be short-term. It's sort of, to a degree, it also does follow philosophy and religion. It's not absolutely connected with religion, but there's, you know, if you've got like Confucius, being all about these things, yeah, and for thousands of years, Buddhism and Confucianism are informing the way you think, you're gonna have that new culture, yeah. And if you've got something which is purely a short-term culture, I mean, what does Christianity say? Yeah, sufficient to the day's evil thereof. Take no thought for the morrow. Yeah, worry about today. So it's a much more short-term view. The Christian culture is about what I can do today. I don't put it off till tomorrow. Yeah? So the Anglo-American world, especially Protestantism, I mean any kind of Christian worldview, is a little bit tending to value a quick in and out and a short-term thing. Tomorrow's going to have its own problems. Let's round off today what we've got today. Let's not have projects staying open for eternity. We want to have a beginning, middle and end, and even up the way we analyse projects in business is, you know, we do DCFs, and if they go off, you know, more than about 5 years, we say, well, this is, you know, this becomes a secular period. We don't even know what's going to happen. We can't cope with it. Whereas the Chinese have a different way of thinking. You know, the Chinese were not bothered really all that much about Hong Kong because they knew that they would get it back. The Chinese don't have to be that worried about the other thing that they lost, which was the area around Vladivostok, because they know that one way, one day, somehow or other, it's going to come back to them one day. Yeah? The Chinese pretty much know that things are going to go their way one day. Yeah? And they're probably right. So, learn Chinese. Seriously.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Now, I hope this is not too far off, but when you talk about long-term orientation,
Yes?
I just somehow thought about technology. I don't know if Homestead, if he ever included the factor of technology in this. I don't know how that impacted this result here or this.
Well, the thing about technology is the more you're willing to take a long-term view on technology, the more creative you can afford to be. The more out of the box you can afford to be. Let's imagine that you've got a very short-term. Let's take it back from nation to organisation now. Let's imagine, and I've got to be careful because I'm in my last 15 minutes. Let's imagine that we, and I've still got one to deal with, because I've got 5 out of 6 so far. Let's imagine that I'm in an organisation that looks for short-term results, and we're talking about technology. If I must come up with a technological solution in the next however many years, I will accept the inevitable fact that I'm not going to get a perfect solution within a very short space of time. Perfectionism takes time. Okay? I can get 80% of the way in 20% of the time, according to Pareto's rule, which most of you will have heard of. Okay? But I can't get everything I want if I have a very short deadline. So I have to function on what I most need and just focus on that. Which means I'm going to get technologies which are not well crafted together into one thing. So if we're talking about software, I'm going to get operating systems where I can't run this program and I can't run that program, or I'm going to get programs that don't run well with this operating system or that, but at least I got it onto the market first, so I've been the market leader. Yeah? Somebody else then comes along later and says, well, we've taken a lot of time to get it exactly the way we want it, and now we're going to release it. Can you imagine what that would do to Microsoft? If somebody came up and said, well, when Microsoft first started, we realised where things were going, and now what we've done is we've produced something that does everything and never crashes. And it isn't like these other things that claim they don't crash, like Apple and, or sorry, that I saw some people like Apple. I even saw one aimed at me a little bit earlier, but I don't mean a rotten Apple, I mean far too polite for that today. Thank you for that. But I mean an Apple computer, an iPad filming, so it's great, or photographing. Imagine something like that was made by really long-term thinkers, and they finally came onto the market and announced it, saying, we're a group you've never even heard about, but for the last 30 years we've been working on an alternative operating system. We're real perfectionists, we're real long-term thinkers, and finally we've got it, yeah? And they put it onto the scene, and it beat Microsoft on every single score. Well, that would be it, wouldn't it? That Bill Gates would probably start crying. Yeah? So it can impact technology. I don't know if that was the way you were thinking, the kind of answer.
Yeah, well, it was more because when you mentioned the very patient country like China,
yeah.
I know that they're not as advanced as the U.S. because we just please. Don't even say that, because you don't even know what they've got. Okay, nobody in this room knows everything that China's got. They've got things we don't know about. Yeah, and they're better than we think they are. Okay, they don't have to come out every 5 minutes and show what the most recent thing is that they've come up with. Yeah, they're doing space travel now, just like at one time it was just the Americans and the Russians. Space travel you know about, because if somebody sticks a satellite into the air, it tends to be visible. Yeah? But the stuff that these guys are doing in robotics, in software, in hacking, cyber attacks, the things that they know about us, we don't know half of it. We probably don't know a quarter of it. Yeah? So, and if you just want to take an example of where China really is, just look at the longest bridges in the world and some of the highest residential and some of the most modern looking residential buildings in the world in Shanghai. Look at the things that China makes. Yeah? China makes crappy shoes for those who want to pay a low budget amount of money. Yeah? But China can make the highest quality on the planet. Of course, quality pays. So if you go to China and you go to China with money, you can get the highest quality things. Yeah? They can make anything you like. It's not going to be like in Poland, where you say, well, I've got your menu here, and I see that you do, actually this is not Poland, this is the Czech Republic, sorry, you go to a restaurant and say, well, can I have that without this because I'm a vegetarian? Actually, Czech Republic is good for vegetarians, so I don't want to be unfair. But can you do something which isn't on the menu? You know, less so these days, but in the past you find that people would look at you and say, well, no, this is our menu, this is our program, and we want to do what is on the menu. So it's difficult to get a lot of making exactly what you want. Yeah? Sorry, yes?
I just wanted to add something, and this is speaking from real life experience. They are very, 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 very talented. My brother had went to China for a study abroad, and over there he said he wanted a suit, and he's more of a taller person, so he can never get the right sizes for the dimensions for his suits. And he actually, I don't know where he went, but he had some lady, she bought up a book, and she told him, you choose your design, from Armani, from every single style there is. You choose your style. He chose his style, and would you believe it, in 6 hours, she had a full tailored Armani suit ready for him.
Yeah, well that's the sort of thing they do. And the Western companies feed into this. Indians are also very good at that tailoring, but they take longer to do it. But what they do is they measure you up. They come to the Czech Republic. You get a gentleman called Panjwani come around, yeah? And he measures people. He measures people up, takes it back to India, and brings you back a suit. You pick your cloth, you pick your style, but it's not within 6 hours because they've got to take it to India and bring it back for you. No, the Chinese are extremely talented. They can make whatever you like. I mean, you just tell them what you want, they'll make it. They've got factories to make anything. Yeah? You've got to be aware of their culture when you do there's a lot of things, not just what's in these dimensions, because these dimensions give you a general roadmap. So I don't want to say that yet, because that's going to be more of my finishing ideas, and I've still got one thing to do before I say that. But these dimensions give you a roadmap. There's an awful lot more to know then on top of that. But these are a good place to actually start to place either a country or a company, an organisation, even a family or a church, into a certain place on a map, is to map them with where they would be on each of these dimensions. Yeah, the last one, though, is indulgence versus restraint. So an indulgence culture is willing to, allow the occasional lapse of human weakness. A culture of restraint is less likely to. So there aren't many studies on that. So maybe even you might be finding it difficult to get any figures on indulgence. But in the main, indulgence. There are countries where I mean, even if you look at the way that people react to the failures of politicians, yeah? In France, it used to be said, of course, Sarkozy's now, I think, a single of change, because he in the end did lose power over the fact that he became a media clown. I can say that without getting sued, because you can comment on public figures. But Sarkozy became a media clown, and it cost him his job, really. Not only that, the fact that the French aren't very good at austerity also cost him his job. But the idea of indulgence, I mean, indulgence versus restraint. I mean, who isn't good at restraint? I mean, the Greeks are not very good at restraint, yes? The countries now, when you're getting into austerity, the countries which can cope with austerity, they're the ones that, I mean, Portugal is also a southern European country and a hot-blooded Latin culture. And when Portugal was told, hey, you're one of the pigs, which is not a very nice way to talk about people, really, but you know, you're one of the people which, you're one of the countries which are causing trouble for the euro, you know, there's Portugal, that you've got Italy, Greece and Spain, and they were the pigs. And when they realised that they weren't only just a member of the pigs, but even the P in pigs, the Portuguese said, right, that's it. We're not going to have them calling us pigs. We're getting down to this austerity business. And you didn't see people getting out, you know, that big government cuts to spending, and people still paying loads of tax but not getting anything much for the additional tax. And the Portuguese, basically society, accepting it, not going out on massive general strikes, not burning down buildings, not getting into pitch fights with their police. And what happens in Athens? Greece is the worst country of the lot. There's not really time to go into the reasons, historical reasons why, but basically they are a country of indulgence. They will carry on, they're not good at restraint, they want to carry on overspending, they don't think about the consequences. Since I've only got 5 minutes by the end of the lecture, I've got to put this to, let's say that's all there is of those, and wrap up a little bit. There were things which, had I got through this quicker, I could have gone on to say, but this is a good point at which to wrap up. I was going to talk a little bit, if I'd had the time, to talk a bit about culture shock, the phases of culture shock. It's interesting to do it, and the additional things on top of that which you can apply to organisational culture that you can't apply to national culture. Things like process orientation versus results orientation, whether something's employee oriented or job oriented, whether you have an open system or a closed system, loose controls versus tight controls, which is linked into some of these other things, of course. Pragmatic or normative. That basically, when you go to any culture, when you go to any environment, try to find out where these people stand, where this, not the people, but the collective mental programming is of that environment with regard to those dimensions of Hofstede, and it will help you. It will give you the first step to understand the culture. When you find out what the culture is doing, you might also analyse why. One of the biggest problems is that people don't go far enough into the reasons why the culture is the way it is. And an understanding of history is very, very, very important. Okay? You're studying business, that's a university qualification, but to put this into practice, when you go into an organisation, you're also going to have to be a little bit historians. Because, for example, people come to this part of Europe, Eastern Europe, or they call it Eastern Europe, we like to call it Central Europe. And they say things like, well, you know, this is the post-communist world, and I suppose we've noticed you're a bit different to us, and it's all because of communism. You had 40 years of communism, we didn't. But that doesn't explain much, because in fact, there are very big differences between, say, the Czechs and the Poles. The Romanians, again, are different still. The Hungarians are different again. We're all rather different. I won't necessarily go into all the minutiae of the differences that there are, but they're bigger than you think. okay? And they don't get explained by the fact that we all shared 40 years of communism. But they do start to get explained when you look at the longer history. And to understand why the Czech Republic's got a slightly different way of looking at things and a different character to Poland, you don't look back the last 40 years. In fact, you can forget that. That wasn't even a single person's lifetime. Okay? What really determines what a Czech is was all well before that. I mean, Czechs often model themselves on Švejk. They say, well, we're the Švejk nation. And Švejk was before the communism ever came along. Švejk was a product of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was many, many hundreds of years before communism came along. And what if you're managing Czechs and you're looking at the way in which they like to change your mind while you're trying to change their minds, it will be a little model of what they did over health. People suddenly start to become ever so worried about their health. They think they're getting ill. They may not necessarily be getting ill, but they think they're becoming ill. They start to get hypochondria. That is one example of an effect of culture shock. A feeling of withdrawal and helplessness. Depression. Another one is irritability and anger. Starting to lose your temper over every little thing. Yes. That's a prime symptom of culture shock. Feeling, and often people who have culture shock and are in a state of mind induced by culture shock, they develop a glazed stare. They're sort of people that will sit there and just be watching you, yeah, and think you're a typical Czech or you're a typical Japanese, or I don't think I like you. They'll sit there and just watch you and think, what the hell are you going to do next? Yeah? This is a result of culture shock. Yeah? Being on Facebook 24 hours a day, like I say, desiring old friends, singing the songs of Zion. Does anybody know this is the 136th Psalm? By the rivers of Babylon we sat down and wept. We hanged our harps in the willows in the midst thereof. It was a Boney M song, by the rivers of Babylon. Perhaps some of you remember that classic. But they wept, and the Hebrews in Babylonian captivity record their great culture shock in Babylon in that psalm, by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, and that actually, that they say, sing us some of the songs of Zion. How shall I sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Yeah, you know it, yeah?
No, that's
you a Boney M fan? Or
no, man, I go to church.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's the black culture.
So how should I sing the Lord's song in a student? But they do. They sing the songs of their own culture to themselves. They keep together in ghettos. That they desire their old friends, and they develop a kind of idealised picture of the place they came from. Yeah, and when they go there, they then, of course, are confronted again with reality. Boredom, they often get completely bored, and you can find them counting down the days to when they're going to go home. Oversleeping, compulsive eating, tendency to drink more alcohol than you should. Also, the stereotyping of the host people, and hostility towards the host people, which often connects back to losing temper. So if you find yourself, sometimes getting absolutely fed up with the host nation, even wanting to kick the door when you leave a shop or something, that's an example of culture shock. Yes, sorry.
I was just going to ask, did you have some sort
This would be interesting for you at any rate. He's quite, good. But my method is called gold list method. Big G, big L. And if you Google that, you'll see that. You'll see videos mainly. And then the other thing you want is hooliganov.tv. That's That's one blog where I do linguistics, travel, philosophy, religion, you name it, the sorts of things I've been doing with you this afternoon.
Is that V?
Yeah, V, hooligan.tv. So if you've liked this sort of stuff, you'll probably like the content there. If you want pure business, I've got another blog which is a more serious one. That's a different blog. That's just business. That's just corporate governance in Central and Eastern Europe. Is this one? So it's very dry. But this one. On Facebook, then just look up David James. But of course, because there are so many David Jameses, just add the word Poland, which is where I spend most of my time. I'm only about a quarter now here. David James in Poland, and you'll probably see me there that way. And I do welcome anybody linking to me on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's a good way of staying in contact. It's a long life, hopefully for all of us, and we never know when we might need it.